Hrabal that is well, unique not only in the context of Czech literature, which oftentimes has a more pointed moral edge to it, but even more generally. And I think for me that's one of the things that makes him a very special writer. That's all I want to say by way of introduction. And what I'd like to do now actually is invite Martin Janeček from the Karolinum press in Prague, which has published this volume of David's and has published a previous volume translated by David of Hrabal's with the titles Pirouettes on a Postage Stamp. And I would point out that both of these volumes are for sale in the corner of this room in the back. So when we finish and break for wine and refreshments, please go have a look, and you're free to purchase the volumes should you wish. So, Martin, could I ask you to say some words about Karolinum's publishing plans in English?
Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. It's good to see such interest in Central European literature. I should perhaps explain why we, as a non-English speaking press, dare to publish in English. And on top of that, being a scholarly and scientific publisher, publishing medicine or natural sciences, we dare to publish Czech fiction. We do that because we, in this way, can follow Czech literature in wider context as opposed to the English presses, who don't usually have a long-term program for publishing Central European fiction. So we are very fortunate to work with people like David Shortem or with literary scientists here in England or in America, and work on something like a community of researchers or translators who follow Czech fiction in greater detail, because you all know Hrabal or Kundera and other authors. You know the major works have been translated. They are available in bookshops as e-books or anywhere. But there are many nice, important Czech fiction works who just can't be translated. They wouldn't make it to the official big publishers' publishing list. So that's why we decided to publish fiction, and we've been doing that for more than 10 years now. And luckily now are in a position that we can include some less known authors, which is why I wanted to use this opportunity today to speak about the coming authors we will be publishing. One of them will be published next month, and it's Ladislav Fuchs, who obviously was a very famous author in the 60s, and then, like Hrabal, was censored or wasn't allowed to be published, and in the 70s was looking for new ways how to approach his readers, how to be published again. And one of first books which was published in the 70s was Myši Natalie Mozhabrové, which we translated as On Mice and Mozhabr. And it's a very interesting text, and from my perspective, there are some similarities between this one and Hrabal's. What I'm interested in both of these texts is the social life of this literature, of how a famous author who's been translated in the 60s into many European languages, both Hrabal and Fuchs, what kind of artistic move do they do in the 70s when they can't be published. And I think this social life of literature, this reception story, can be interesting again for students or for researchers, and we would be very happy to see some studies or monographs to be published in some coming years based on the literature we translated so far. So that's kind of the aim of our series. I might mention one other text which will be published hopefully in a year or some year and a half. It is by Josef Jedlička, who's known for his essays. He's been an emigre rádio Svobodná Evropa. And Kde život náš je v půli se svou poutí is a for Czech people rather famous or used to be famous story. This time it will be the first English translation, and there are many I can see there are many similarities between Jedlička and the Hrabal. It's from the 50s, and it's also like Peter Zusi was now talking about. There is the big history, and then there is Jedlička or Hrabal's way of how to depict the Central European up and downs of big history in the real life of real people. So we are very happy to, through Hrabal, to publish 3 books on similar topic or similar I call it social life of literature. We probably know better in English. That's what I wanted to say.
Great.
Today. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much, Martin. Now I'm going to ask the man of the evening, David, to say some words about the process of translating Hrabal, a notoriously difficult task, and then to read a passage from his new translation. And actually, we don't have a copy of it here. Would it be possible for somebody to bring one up here? David, I think you can start.
Yes, I can start. The trouble is, with a job like this, you don't know where to start. It's kind of endless. A good place to start is obviously the title. And here, there's an obvious problem, given that there is a word occurring in the Czech title which already has an English language history. Those of you who know previous translations of works by Hrabal will have met the word palavra and the verb to palaver, its particle palavering and so on, which I'm afraid doesn't mean what it seeks to mean, at least not in my register of English. So I eventually looked at various synonyms that crudely mean wittering or burbling or whatever you like, and had a look at their various dictionary definitions from various decades past and decided none of them were really suited. I won't bore you with all the reasons why. I looked at one and rejected it, looked at another and rejected it, but it does explain why I've ended up with Rambling On. Because it does seem to me that all these people who are wandering around graveyards at night, maundering about the appropriate place to put Hrabal's body when he dies within earshot of a local football pitch, or people maundering on about, I'm now saying maundering, but understand I really mean rambling, the merits of this or that variety of apple, or the rights and wrongs of this village or that, having the privilege of portioning up a wild boar that was shot by the rather inept group of armoured huntsmen from one village, but the damn thing got up and ran away and was actually shot on the territory of another village, and that creates, well, typical case of inter-village rivalry that we're probably aware of in other societies as well. But it all gives plenty of people plenty of things to talk about. Or you've got a strange man who's here in this village, and it isn't really even a village, it's a few scattered chalets, some of them fairly old, like the local pub, largely inhabited by Praguers as their second homes, in the depths of this vast range of forest, which shows up well on Google Maps, incidentally, but many of the detailed spots that get named are not there. They're not even on the ordinary hiking maps and things, which is why I asked if it would be possible to include that. element of the book. I missed it, you know, when it came out. I had it in for them because it wasn't where I expected. They put it at the front, I expected it back, but it is there. And I'm very glad they agreed to this particular strategy. So it takes place in the woods, and there are these scattered people there, some who've been there a long time, some who've been there less long, and they all have their own quirks, and either Hrabal solicits them to talk casually, yeah, or they just talk by their nature. They are normal chatterboxes in the pub, outside the pub, doesn't matter. And he allegedly, as he repeats in several of his fiction and non-fiction works, he listens to it all, he takes it down, he sits down, writes it on his typewriter, tears it up, rewrites it, and then gets out the scissors. And so the same passage, or nearly the same passage, can turn up all over the place in different works. That's part of his method, his cutting and pasting method, which for the translator can be very infuriating, because you're reading this passage, you're translating, so I've seen this before. Did I translate it the same last time? And so you were going back and forth between the two versions of the Czech text and your own two versions, making sure that it is the same, and if it's not quite the same, have you registered the difference? Does it matter that you have or haven't registered the difference? And so on. In other words, it's a pain in the backside, or can be. So there's this business of repetition, there's the business of finding an appropriate title that will sit more or less well in English. Then, unsurprisingly, there is his vocabulary. Now, you will forgive me if I look to my notes here, which were culled as an initial version of